Hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, where we're going to be talking about the use of Propeller beyond the drone, is kind of how I'm thinking about it. We have Chelsea, who is our demand generation manager. Apologies. She's going to be the one that's manning the slide deck for Jim and I. My name's Jack Knockhazel. I'm a product manager here. I come from a civil construction background, although at this point that was 5 years ago. So a lot of my industry knowledge, if it wasn't for talking to customers on a weekly basis, I think definitely would have fallen off a cliff by now. But very lucky to be able to speak with folks like yourselves. I was on the customer success team for the first part of my career at Propeller and then switched over to the product team recently. My area of focus right now is our core visualizer, what we call it, the place where you upload designs, make measurements, that sort of thing. Jim, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Okay, thanks. Hi, I'm Jim Greenberg. I'm a product researcher at Propeller. My background is survey. I've worked in product development for survey equipment, machine control systems, and at Propeller, I'm looking after kind of trying to help to set the future direction of the product by talking to customers and using my industry knowledge to see how we can use Propeller to solve customer problems.
We're very, very lucky to have Jim. Any
Thanks, Jack.
recently it's been you're the coordinate system guy. Any coordinate system question, which we all know can get very confusing very quickly. Jim has been a huge resource. That and plenty of other things.
Thanks.
Cool. So what's on the agenda today? When thinking about what you can do without a drone, there's plenty of situations that come to mind. These are the four big ones, like the four top ones here on the agenda that came to mind for us. But if we've left one off from this list, please, the Q&A box should be open for you. Please feel free to drop some comment in the Q&A box if there's something beyond this that you kind of want us to riff on, Jim and I, and we can do that towards the end of the session. And maybe situations isn't the right word. If you just go back one slide, Chelsea, maybe these are more like objectives, and I think they loosely correspond with features in Propeller. Although there's definitely some overlap that you'll notice. I think multiple features can be kind of associated with one or more of these objectives. So I'm going to focus on the first two, worksite mapping and pre-bid verification. Jim's going to more focus on the second two, but again, there's going to be a little bit of overlap here. Okay, cool. You can hit the next slide, Chelsea. So worksite mapping and pre-bid verification. I do wish that we could kind of do a hand raise on here, but you'll just have to bear with me as I ask some rhetorical questions. So imagine you're planning on bidding some work. You do your site visit, maybe you take some photos, and God willing, you have an original ground surface provided in the bid package to you. But you kind of want to verify that that OG surface is correct. Maybe it's not even the entire site that you care about, but maybe one small area in particular that stood out to you when you visited the site. Maybe it looked a little bit off, or you noticed that it may have more recently changed than the date associated with that OG surface that you got. You can imagine that your drone pilot is maybe 2 counties over and has a packed schedule for the rest of the week. Or maybe you're in a situation where your company doesn't even have a drone pilot. But maybe you're a little bit lucky and you have another project that's only a couple miles away from this one that you're considering bidding. So that project's running. You, as the estimator, maybe if you're a nice guy, you call the project manager or the superintendent and ask if you can borrow one of the grade setters for a few hours from that project to do a quick hand topo of the area of interest on this potential project, the one that seemed a little bit out of whack. The PM or superintendent agrees, the grade setter goes over, he's able to knock out that hand topo in an hour, under an hour, hopefully, and then sends that file over to you. So let's say you, as the estimator, you're not necessarily a CAD expert. You know you could do it in CAD or AgTech, but maybe that involves you pinging your VDC team, your takeoff team, and you would just kind of prefer to get those quantities as soon as humanly possible, even if that means you have to kind of pull those measurements and do that analysis yourself. So how you might do it in Propeller is you would create a quick site, you would dump in that hand topo, you would dump in that OG surface file from the bid package, draw a quick polygon, and either A, you confirm that OG surface is correct, like it matches pretty nicely with your hand topo, or you notice some significant discrepancies between the two, and then that informs your bid. So realistic, unrealistic. I understand participants don't have the ability to say anything in this webinar, but in my past life, at least, that situation has played out a number of times. So that's typically the way I like to talk about this feature in particular, the tin surfaces. But this tin surfaces isn't just for hand topos, right? This is for any surface. For years, Propeller has accepted surfaces in our designs tab. And actually, maybe Chelsea, this is a good time to click to the next one and just start playing that video. So you could see those surfaces, the ones that you uploaded via the designs tab on the map, and you can measure against them, but that was really about it. What a lot of people did was they would upload their survey surfaces to designs, which is a bit strange, but it was the most efficient way to get those surfaces into Propeller. This feature, as you hopefully just saw at the beginning of that video, tin surfaces, happens over in that universal uploader button, and then under survey, you have tin surface. When you upload a tin surface, you can compare against it, you can measure on it, you can run hydrology on it, you can draw on it, draw being some of the new markup functionality that we released recently. And lastly, you can merge it. And merging, one of my favorite applications, I think the one that provides a ton of value to a lot of customers. And that kind of takes us to the next slide. So here, any surface that you can get into Propeller can be merged with any other surface. A surface on its own that you can interact with, that you can measure on, that you can compare against, etc., that's all great. But how often is it really that you just have that one surface in isolation? Typically, at least in my experience, these surfaces are part of some wider context. And our revamped composite builder allows for those surfaces to exist simultaneously on the map. The next slide, Chelsea, you can click to. This is just a little bit about how it works. This first one is about surfaces on surfaces. So you can imagine you have maybe a drone topo already in the site, but it doesn't have to be a drone survey. Let's say it's the original ground surface that you had in your bid package. You load that in Propeller. Then you have, just going off that same old example, you have the grade setter go to that site and perform a hand topo, send you that file, you get that into Propeller. This merge that we're kind of showing in the video, going create composite, ticking on those two surfaces, so that OG surface and the hand topo, and then clicking merge, that lets you view that Frankenstein topo, I like to call it. So now your hand topo should tie in, if the elevations on the edge actually match with your OG surface really well. But the fact is that these are combined now. So any measurement that you make is going to have that most updated surface, regardless of the survey that it came from. One more example that I'll show on the next video. So rather than surveys on top of surveys, like that one, this is kind of the more typical composites flow that we've seen. You have a really, really large area that maybe you flew in segments. So this one, I think in this case, flight 2 is on the left and flight 1 is on the right. But this one, we've already kind of created that composite from the original video. We've gone create composite, we've merged the two, and then we have these two adjacent surveys that sit right next to each other. Can be a little bit difficult to see, but right now that first survey, or the survey on the right, I should say, which was flight 1, a little confusing, is on top. And you'll see right there, I just clicked into the video, we actually have the ability to reorder those in whatever order you'd like, which is a little bit of new functionality here. So if one, the most recent one's going to be put on top by default, but it might make sense to reorder those.
And that works for things like trenches, right? Where you have different parts exposed at different times. You can put it all together then and have it be what you want it to be.
That's exactly it. Yeah. So the entire trench is not open at one time. It would be great if it was, then you would just fly the drone when the entire thing was open. But in this case, yeah, you could have just part of the trench was open at each time. You do a hand topo of each of the times that it was open, and lo and behold, when you stitch everything together, you have a fully open trench. This last bit of the video is just showing if you did have sort of like irrelevant information beyond the area that you cared about, you have the ability to trim that out, whether you're on the individual survey. And again, this does not have to be a drone survey. This can be any survey, a tin surface, a hand topo, something from a total station, etc. You have the ability to crop that area out, whether it's an individual or in a composite survey. Cool. That was all the stuff I talked about. Jim, was there any other thing you wanted to comment on tin surface? We're going to move on to
Uh,
DirtMate.
no, yeah, I think we'll just wait for questions and see what people are interested in. I
Cool.
thought you covered it. Yep. Okay, I'm going to cover two things today. They're interrelated. I'm going to talk about DirtMate, which is this on the left-hand side, the GNSS receiver that you can see. I'm also going to talk about the Propeller mobile app. So DirtMate is a GNSS receiver with a really strong magnet on the bottom. We use that magnet to mount the DirtMate on a piece of heavy equipment. And the data collected by DirtMate is sent to the portal. It's high accuracy GNSS, and then based on the machine and what we're trying to look at, we can analyze that data in different ways. So the main functions are, it can create surfaces, and from the surfaces we can look at volumes. We can also look at how machines are moving, and we can track that movement and analyze that movement. And the whole idea is to make it so that, the customer is able to make decisions based on understanding what's going on in the site. And that's pretty much in real time, a little bit of delay, but I'll get into that. So next slide, please. Okay, so I'm going to break DirtMate functionality up into the kind of two broad categories. So production machines and support or load and haul machines. So the machine's actually like moving the dirt relative to a design, and then the machine's moving material around the site. Okay, next slide. So looking at production machines, the main thing we get out of production machines is this high accuracy surface mapping. I try to break it into two parts, one being surface mapping, one being kind of haul routes. A scraper is a machine that kind of breaks that differentiation. So just be aware, like it's hard to categorize, but the value of categorizing is there for understanding what it's capable of. The value for not categorizing is there for answering really kind of deeper questions. And I'll get into that. But what I mean by that is something like, you could count, loads of haul, and you can combine that with the change in the surfaces. So, it's interesting to see how many truckloads are coming in. It's interesting to see how that's affecting the surface. So we separate them out for the value that they provide, but we combine them to answer questions. So you can go to the next one, please. So first, DirtMate surfaces. So basically, we put this GNSS receiver on a machine, a scraper, a dozer, a soil compactor, and while those machines are out working, they're collecting data, and that data is going to the portal, and every half hour, a new surface is created. And what that means is you can have lots of machines working. We're taking all the data from all those machines, and what we do is determine the last pass of every machine, and we create a final surface every half an hour. And so what that does is, one, it fills in between flights. It gives you the ability to, see what's happening on your site between flights. But also gives you the ability to interact with this new data. So what happens is you have an underlying surface, and that underlying surface could be a drone surface, or it could have been like some kind of a manually collected topo with a rover, anything. So we take that underlying surface, we take the half hour surfaces from the machines, and we composite it all together. And then in the portal, you're able to do the typical tools in Propeller. You're able to look at volumes in areas. You're able to pull cross sections in areas, and you're also able to export that data. So yeah, that's the kind of the basics behind the surfaces and the machines.
So
You can go to the
Jim,
next, please. Yep.
maybe just one question on the last one.
Okay.
Since we're talking about, Propeller without a drone survey, DirtMate, as I understand it, can function just fine without drone surveys. But we have all these equipments that are sort of paintbrushing these surfaces across the entire site. I'm just imagining if, two trucks aren't right next to each other, there might be some sort of seam or like a gap between the surface that's generating. Is that something that we've seen, and how could something like that be resolved? Or is that not, we haven't really seen that?
Well, so we take into account the geometry of the machine or the width of the machine. So if there is some kind of a windrow or some missed area, well, a motor grader is a hard one, so I shouldn't say windrow, but like if you have two dozers working together and they actually, miss the area between them, we should see that because we're going to know the width of the dozer. And as you say, I think a paintbrush is a really good analogy, right? It's kind of like it's got a width of the machine and it's painting the area. So, um, yeah.
Gotcha. But I mean, presumably you could, if you were concerned about that, I'm just thinking you could run around with a rover strapped to the side of your buggy and just have a very, very loose topo that you're doing that maybe takes, a few minutes to do that just covers your entire work area. And then you would have some sort of base that
Oh,
the DirtMate surfaces would then build on top of. Is that like a better
definitely.
thing to do or not necessarily?
Having coverage to start, definitely, a little bit of prep in that way. Getting the original ground with something like a topo survey, continuous topo survey would be valuable for sure.
Yeah. Cool, cool.
Okay. Next slide. So this is a lot of data. And so what Propeller, I think, is really, good at is saying, what are we going to do with all this data? How are we going to let a customer look at this data without, making them go through all these manual steps to figure out what's going on? And so this is just one example of that. So in the portal, I can go into an AI area, and you can see on this that I've chosen a time period of yesterday, and this was a couple weeks ago. And so what it's done is it said, okay, well, from 5 a.m. to 6 p.m. on this site, we know where it started, we know where it ended, and we go in and we find those areas. That's kind of the highlighted outlines. Next slide will show it a little bit better. But we find those areas where the material moved, right? And so what that means is you can zoom in on any one of these areas and you can actually see how much moved in that area. The line that's been created has been created by us looking, or the portal looking at the data. You could save that outline, or if you know where that work's being done, you might have some kind of a polygon defining your design in that area, and you can look at how the DirtMate surface has changed in a specific area. This just finds it for you. And what I show on the right hand side is I can do a cross section of that, and in that cross section view, I'm seeing the design, and I'm seeing the DirtMate surface at the beginning of the day and the DirtMate surface at the end of the day. And all of this is user configurable. Like you could look at any period of day that you want. You could look at it, for just a couple hour segment or something like that. But what we do is we go in and we help you to see what's happened today, what's happened yesterday, what's happened last week. But it's fully user configurable. But my point here is it's a lot of data. And what we do is we take all that data and we process it in a way that makes it digestible for the user pretty easily. Yep. Okay, so I'm going to move on from production machines to what I call support and haul machines. So more kind of excavator, haul truck combinations. And in this case, the high accuracy isn't necessarily about the surface, although it can be about the surface. It can be about the quality of a haul road or the slope of a haul road. But what we're really looking at is the cycle times in machines, and how much, how many loads they're doing. So you can go to the next, please. So with not looking at surfaces, but looking at the roots, what we end up doing is showing this breadcrumb trail of where the different machines have moved. You can see on this graphic, it's just every machine for this day, but every machine that has a DirtMate, you could toggle it on or toggle it off. You can get statistics for the entire day for the entire fleet, or for the entire day for a group of machines, or for an individual machine. And once again, this is just one of those things where, we try to make it just give you the answers that you want. There's some more configuration that can be done here. This is what we call like smart cycles. And so we kind of try to determine the loops that the machines are doing, and we present that data to you relative to those machines. You can also have like load zones and dump zones. What we're doing here, this would be, one example. So say you have like an excavator with a DirtMate and you have a haul truck with a DirtMate. Well, we can tell when those two machines get close to each other. And we can tell when the haul truck is idling or being loaded. And so we just look at all the data, and we try to analyze what the site is doing. We do have some tools that help you to tweak that if the answer that we're giving isn't exactly what you're after. But the initial guess, and a pretty good guess, is just come straight out of the data without the customer having to do anything.
I hadn't thought of accuracy in those two ways, Jim. It's like X and Y and Z. That's one accuracy, and that's the surfaces that you were talking about before. This one
Yep.
is more about X and Y plus time. As long as that is accurate, then presumably everything you pull, like all of your insights from this, should also be accurate.
Yep. And the Z might be helpful sometimes to figure out the slope of the road. If you see something going on, like, the truck's slowing down or struggling or whatever, you can look at the surface if you want to as well.
Yeah, I was thinking in this one too, like my concern about the having no data between two machines that aren't quite touching, but like very close. This obviously doesn't matter for any of that. Like if you're doing your speed analysis and your cycle time, that obviously matters way less.
Yeah, correct. Yep. Okay, so just a bit of a summary. So what does DirtMate do? Outside of drone surfaces, it allows you to get automatic volumes off the machines. That allows you to make calculations in the portal. I didn't mention this earlier, but we have like an email report. So you don't need to go into the portal to get these reports. They can be emailed. Well, they are emailed on a daily basis if that's what you want. So, there's it's not always convenient for someone to go into the portal, and we know that. So working on ways to make that data available to everyone that it's valuable to, without having to go into the portal or have a computer in the field. So yeah, and we can use these AI insights to figure out where things are happening and then point you in that direction. The one thing I was mentioning earlier, right? We can do this combination of load counts and volume changes, so that you actually can see how the effort of the support machines is changing the volume on the ground. Kind of obviously, DirtMate's one of the DirtMate's great uses is you can use it somewhere where you can't fly. So if you were to do a topo to start, say you're near an airport where you can't fly, you can use all this without a drone, and it's really useful, and gives you all these insights without ever flying a drone. And really, the idea here is it allows you to keep everything on track. It allows you to see what's going on without having to send a surveyor out, to collect this data. And it's one of those things, it's so much data, and it's being processed so fast that it's just a new tool, right? It's not something that you could even do with a rover in such a timely way. So, okay, so now I'm going to switch over to yep, you can go for it. Thanks. The mobile app. So the mobile app's been around for a little while. One of the main use cases of the mobile app is communications between the field and the office. Um, it's not like it's sending data from the field to the office. The field and the office are accessing the same data. And so what you can do with the DirtMate mobile app is you could, if there's an issue in the field or something you want to look at, you could take a picture of that. Uh, you can upload that picture with notes and it just appears on the portal. You could point someone towards that or share that with them, and they're going to see exactly what you're talking about in the field. And the center picture is a warehouse site in Denver, and you can see the images taken in the field, and the bottom left is those same images in the portal. And this can get quite busy as well. We make it so that media can be filtered by time period. So you could just see, what's come up today if you wanted to, right? But everything's kept and everything's there for the record, but try to make it easy for you to access. On the right-hand side, this was just kind of a little experiment I was doing with the mobile app. I was going to a job site and I wanted to find a control point. And so I uploaded a KML file into the controller, and I just used my phone with the autonomous position of the phone to go out and find a control point. And the little yellow insert there is me using a magnetic locator and finding an iron pin, right? So all kinds of things you can do with the mobile app. In addition, you can make measurements in the field with it. You can do cross sections, you can do areas. And the thing I'm going to get into is that now the mobile app supports DirtMate. So
Jim,
you can,
real quick, maybe before you go to the DirtMate side of it, I just wanted to play devil's advocate and maybe put you on the spot a little bit here. What you said, KML. So you have a KML that you,
yep,
it sounds like you uploaded to Propeller on desktop, and then that would show as a design. You could turn that on in your mobile app when you're out in the field, and that might get you close to that control point. But it looks like in this one, it was covered up pretty good. So you had to do some digging for it, and you finally found it. You snapped a picture. Why are you doing this in the Propeller app and not in the Google Earth mobile app? Is there any like benefit that the Propeller app has over Google Earth in this particular instance?
Um, it was really the recording. So I just wanted to have an initial. I went out and I found all these things, and I just took pictures of them, and they exist in the portal. So I just saw it as more of a documentation tool, I think, as well as the navigation tool. Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. I'll be a little bit cheesy and try to steel man that side of it. I think if you were I think it is possible to like associate a picture, like an image with a KML. Like I've seen people do that in Google Earth and upload it and pin it on the map.
Okay.
But that's not like a centralized location. I think you would then be forced to kind of package up that project and email it over to someone, then they would pull it up in their Google Earth. I think the nice thing here is like anyone who has access to your Propeller portal, obviously they would need, the proper permission level to see photos. Sometimes you want to restrict who can see what on your Propeller site, but anyone with
Yep.
the account automatically gets access to these photos. So if someone needs access to this control point again, it's one click on the app rather than trying to go dig out a KML and an email and then open that up in your instance of Google Earth.
Yep. Good. That's really very true. And that's probably my last bullet point there that I didn't cover. So thank you for doing that.
I got you.
Yeah. Okay. We can go to the next one, Chelsea. So this is the new feature. So now we can see DirtMate in the mobile app. And what this means is that in the field on your phone, you're seeing, your production machines and your support machines. So you can go in on the image on the left, you can see, I'm taking a cross section. So I'm seeing a design surface, the one that I have toggled on, and the current DirtMate surface. It doesn't have all the functionality that you do in the portal to set different time frames on your DirtMate surfaces, things like that. It's a quick way for someone to get in there, have the latest DirtMate surface, have the design of interest, pull a cross section, and see where the machines are relative to where they need to be. On the right hand side, I just drew a random polygon around an area so that I could see, how much material this machine is moving, has moved today. So these are today measurements. You can't go back and look at all the data. That's, just, it's not really the right, well, not probably the value prop for the person in the field. They just want to see what's happening right now. And so, yeah, so cross sections, volumes, the yellow lines that you see there, that's just because I have that machine on and highlighted so I can see what it's doing. I could turn those off and I could get actually a nice clean kind of cut fill map there as well. But by selecting any machine on the mobile app, you get the trail of what it's done for that day. And then you can kind of, query it in an area of activity or something like that. So it gives you visibility into what a machine's, where it's been this day. Okay. You can go to the next one. So same here with the haul machines and support machines. So you can click on any machine and you can see exactly what it's done that day. You can see its runtime, its idle time, and the cycles that it's done. And that's how the everything's segregated in the field is just by selecting individual machines. So you can see what a specific operator has done in this day. So really, like, just kind of the point of the mobile app, but DirtMate, I feel at the moment, is really just to get to the point, right? Open it up, click on what you're interested in, see it, right? Draw a cross section, see where you are relative to design, pick a machine, see what that machine's done today, how long it's sat, how long it's worked, how many cycles it's done. So really quick access to this information. Yeah, I believe that's my last slide.
Yeah, cool. So yeah, please, any questions you guys have, please drop them in that Q&A box. While you're typing those up, I figured I might just mention one bonus thing that we don't have slides for because it's literally going out to just a handful of customers later today. But CSV import, that's one of those things that's been, a very, very long requested feature at Propeller. And before we used to rely on drone surveys, like pretty heavily, like the drone survey was the thing that kind of got you into Propeller. Now with DirtMate and with tin surfaces and accessing the base map early, like before you even have a drone survey, we're making sure that CSV import process can happen long before you do a drone survey. So you can just imagine a long list of points that represent just about anything, control points, blast holes, anything, and you can bulk get those into Propeller and have them nicely organized in your measure tab. So don't have any screenshots of that, but if you do get into Propeller at some point and click the upload button, you should see an option for measurements or CSV or something along those lines relatively soon. So yeah, any other questions that anyone has, please drop them in that Q&A box. Jim, anything else we should chat about on this one?
Not off the top of my head. Here's a question. Does the field survey phone app allow any customization of data fields? It allows you to select, like in a cross section, select the design that you're looking at. It allows you to define an area. It allows you to select the units of that field area, things like that. So it's customizable to some degree. It's just more focused, I guess, than the web portal, and the idea being just to get you that information quicker or easier.
When I think data fields, that may have been good for you, Mike. Cool. When I think data fields, my mind just goes to like applications like Survey 123, like forms, or building a custom form like a Google form almost on your desktop and then sending that out to mobile and then multiple people filling out that form and then submitting and then you kind of aggregating all of that data. That's not quite something the mobile app can do. We have like a little bit of functionality in the platform, like for drop downs that you can actually set
Right.
up in desktop and have those appear on mobile. But I wouldn't say that's like a fully fledged solution yet.
Yeah. Thanks, Jack.
But definitely one we're thinking about. Cool. Well, hopefully that was helpful for everyone. Like the last few seconds here, if you want to drop in another question, feel free. But yeah, we're like this, you know, Jim and I said yes to this webinar and we're excited about hosting it. I think because both of us were equally excited about making Propeller available to more users, even if you aren't flying a drone, which, yeah, we're both very, very psyched about.
Yep.
Cool. No other questions, so maybe we can leave it there. Thanks everyone for the time and for